Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Welcome to Strong Dads. Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson alongside of Kyle Crawford, and finally we got your replacement in the store right here.
It's always good when we bring somebody else in to kind of carry the load, because us two together is
dropping the ball.
The ball.
God help us.
God help us. Today, man, we got a great guest, somebody we're excited to talk to, and mostly because, man, there's a lot of excitement in this guy. I mean, you just like jitter with energy, don't you?
That's just because I just did a bunch of push-ups before you.
I'm going to welcome Justin Noppert to the Strong Dads podcast.
Yeah,
Justin, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's exciting to be here. Yeah.
Good.
These guys are doing the pec thing before the show starts. So
and we asked Kyle to do a little pec bounce, and he can't bounce the pec.
Yeah,
so
it's my first time meeting Justin. I like the dude. I like it.
All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about the work that Justin's involved with. Not just his day-to-day work that pays the bills, but more some passion stuff that's laid on your heart, and why you got into it. And it correlates pretty closely with what we do with Strong Dads. And so, we never look at anyone who's in this world of Strong Dads or the fight or whatever as competitors.
Yep.
Like, we are joining forces. All right, we're joining forces, and so we want to take the time to celebrate what you're doing, and how can we combine forces, so to speak, and because the fight is real, right?
Yeah,
and the war
absolutely.
is real, and so we want to make sure we know who the enemy is and combine forces to go against the enemy. So anyway, that's kind of the deal. We'll get started. Thank our Casey.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Check them out up in Lawrenceburg. Let them know we sent you down there. They got an awesome facility. Go check them out for any of your home decor and landscaping needs. So thanks so much for Casey's Outdoor Solutions.
All right. Mm-hmm. So, Justin, give us a little bit of background. Where are you from? What work do you do? And then maybe some family stuff. I know if you don't mention the family, you're going to get in trouble. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I'm in southeastern Indiana. I call it, I tell people I'm from the bustling metropolis of D.C., Dearborn County. So I know my wife likes us to feel a little bit more sophisticated sometimes, because she's a big city girl from Tulsa.
I bet
Oklahoma,
she's from Tulsa.
Yeah.
She's constantly trying to keep you in line, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. So it's been a journey. I'm a construction worker. I have a construction company in the area. Won't be doing too much advertising on that, but talk about some of the journey that we've been on. I have 3 wonderful kids, 8, 10, and 12. We're in the Lawrenceburg school system, which we love, and we're committed to being a part of the really cool things that are happening there. Spent about 5 years traveling abroad, overseas, doing a lot of missions work, and just really, being from, D.C., there's a lot going on here, but just really expanding my frame of reference.
Yeah.
And seeing that, that's what was eye-opening, and that's what really put a passion in me, that there are some greater things worth going after, worth fighting for in our lives. And so I met my wife. We're going to be married 16 years this year. I met her through an organization in Honduras where I was taking groups of men, strong dads, fight guys. For years and years, we take men down to do service projects in an area that was devastated by a hurricane back in '97.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that journey working with men came from, as we began to say, hey, the fight is real in our lives, and there are some really good things worth fighting for. But at the same time, like you said before, we're in this together.
Yeah.
A lone wolf dies,
Yeah.
and we see that more and more, that if the enemy can isolate us from everyone else, he's going to kick us in the teeth, and we're going to be down. And until we're at a position that we are humble enough, which humility you'll hear
Yeah.
comes up a lot because, that's another big area for men that we can kind of say, we got this, we're going to hold on, we got the reins, take the bull by the horns, however you want to say it.
Yep.
That's, I think, a struggle for men is that we can keep it all together.
Right.
My dad passed away in 1999 at 49 years old. And I came back, that's when I moved back to this area from traveling overseas. And, I had to hold things together. Yeah. So, I didn't mourn it well. I wasn't in a healthy place. All of these things, you grab onto these things and you hold on so tight and you realize the fruit of that is stress, anxiety, depression,
anger, I see
addictions,
a lot of anger, addiction.
whatever those things, we turn to these things to help cope with us trying to be in control.
Yeah.
Right.
So you'll hear probably over and over the thread of the fight. It's very synonymous with surrender, of being vulnerable with other men, but also being vulnerable and identifying and allowing God to identify things in our lives, being more self-aware.
Yeah.
Not just for, the psychology purposes and everything else, but looking deeply into our hearts and saying, hey, there's something better worth fighting for here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to touch back just for a second because one of the things that when I work with men all the time, it's pretty easy for me to pick up on their dad's story, okay? Because your dad's story tends to not be a neutral story. It tends to be either one of like, man, my dad was awesome. He kind of just left me with a great foundation and whatever, or my dad's story is not very good. Yeah. It's a wound, that kind of thing. And you mentioned that your dad passed away. How old were you when he passed away?
I would have been 23.
Okay, so tell me about your dad's story. You've told me, I don't know the full story, but I know that he was a Vietnam vet. He was kind of a badass dude, from what
he was a small. He was the glue that held our family together because he was so calm and collected. I mean, just a smooth guy all around, a really small guy. Vietnam, he's like 5'5", 125 pounds wet, when he went to Vietnam. But he came back, and that changed him because of what he saw.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad were full-on hippies, in the 60s. So, they went through that whole era. So I remember as a very young child, the wild, hippie parties, at our house.
Wow.
And then something changed.
Yeah.
Then something changed, and they saw, a different way of living, a call that God had put on their lives. And I got to watch them, my mom and dad, work through that together. So although my dad was a smooth operator for the longest time, a ladies' man, I got to see that change of his commitment to my mom, and I can't tell you how fortunate I am, and I say this to any person I'm around. When you have two parents that love each other in the same household working together to raise their children, good, bad, or ugly, it's such a huge difference that it makes in someone's life. And so I got to watch the change in my dad and my father, which again
being the leader, so to speak. We often minimize, like, well, what does that mean to be the leader? It's just by I don't care if he's 125 pounds, it's his sheer masculine strength that he was born with, right? It wasn't like he one day said, oh, I'm going to make myself this way. He's born with it, but now he does get the option to direct it, and he started to direct it, and your mom was right there.
Well, it was the opposite. My mom directed it. My mom kind of wore the spiritual pants in the family for the longest time. Yeah. As we see happen a lot in our lives, and even as men, it's easy to kind of let our wives take lead in the spiritual sense. How we're going to get our kids to church. So we need to raise them in Sunday school and kind of make those decisions because we're just going to focus on the breadwinner, and do these things. But I watched that transfer with my father to begin to take that role.
So he was accepting it.
That, and shift that. Not to lord it over my mom by any means, but I started to see a partnership in them, and then I started to see him take authority in that. And again, I mean, even past the 49 years old, the opportunity that I had even as a young adult and the interactions with my earthly father during that time is I can't say how amazing those were.
Yeah. So then he passes away at 49. You're 23. So what kind of void do you have? Because, and I'm going to this because you have a passion in you about fatherhood right now. You have a passion about, like, you know what, I may screw up a lot of things, but that's one thing I don't want to screw up.
Yeah.
So what void did you have, and do you think that attributes to, like, the passion that you want to say, hey, we need these men, these my dad kind of men in every kid's life?
Well, I think it's important that just father figures in general, and even having a good example. And I know there are many men have not had that example. And there's a lot of guys within the Fight Network that you hear about the wound, the story about, my dad, abused me, or, the way that he treated me, or he was just a workaholic, he was absent,
neglected,
or he abdicated from things in their family. And so I think that's something that's really important that we focus on, and we allow healing to come through that, and we also dig into what's a better example of what a father looks like.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of myths of that we got to be a badass, or we have to do this or that.
Yep.
Or we have to make 100K a year.
Yeah. Right.
Whatever it might be, there's a lot of myths that and things that we have to fight against in the world of what does a good father look like.
Yep.
And I believe we have a very good example through the scriptures of how Jesus reveals to us how a father interacts with a son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, will you get into a little bit to that? So obviously you've mentioned a few times about this idea of the fight. Will you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's that's why one of your passions, right? That this idea of going after men, showing that there's something better to fight for. So will you get into that a little bit?
Absolutely. And the fight kind of spawned from a group of men and I. We've been meeting together for 2-3 years now, and we recognize that there's something greater worth fighting for than this humdrum daily thing that we do all the time, and In doing that, we're recognizing that there's a lot in us that has to change. And one of the things that we base this on, the fight is based on Nehemiah 4:14, and it's Nehemiah when he's rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. And there's been a lot of time that I've been thinking about what are the walls that we want to rebuild, because you're always saying we need to tear down walls, we need to let people in, and this kind of thing, because we do in fighting, we need to be vulnerable and allow people into our lives and work with each other. But what are some of the walls? I believe a lot of the walls are character and integrity in our lives, that we are rebuilding the foundations. And there's so much of this is connected directly with even rock solid families and and strong dads, of building a strong foundation. And as a builder, that's what I do for my trade.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to picture, a broken, shoddy wall.
Sure.
And, and thinking about how do you fix the footing under that wall.
It doesn't matter what you do to the wall if you don't fix the footing.
So if the footing is bad, if our foundation is not rock solid, then we're going to have an issue of how far we can build that wall. And so many of us, you see it every day. The smallest thing can sweep the rug out from under people's feet. Yeah. And it's just like suddenly everything's falling apart because of the smallest little thing. But as we begin to stand on a firm foundation, then that changes. So what we at the fight, we believe that firm foundation is a lot of the surrender to what God is wanting to do in our lives.
Sure.
And that involves some rhythms and some disciplines. It's there's a cool scripture in James that talks about consider pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because it develops perseverance. Yes, trials develop that perseverance, but we don't have to face trials all the time.
Right.
There's something else that develops character in our lives and develops healthy foundation, and that's discipline. Yeah. And so discipline in our lives, of getting in some healthy patterns in our lives, is vital in order to continue to grow. And if we can't expect to change, we can't expect the relationship with my wife to suddenly change if we're not willing to change kind of a pattern that we do in our lives.
Yeah. We talk all the time, this idea that what you were talking about, the discipline, that with discipline comes your freedom. And a lot of times people think I have to have the freedom and then I'll get my discipline figured out, because we've talked all the time about this idea that we have those freedoms. But man, like you have to be disciplined in order to get that true freedom. The ability to change your marriage, the ability to change your being a dad, but you have to incorporate those discipline principles, in order to start that, and then that's where the real freedom comes in.
Yeah.
I can't help but to think, just we talk about this all the time. The way that we learn how to be a man is not really through a textbook. It's usually typically modeled, right? It has to be a level of experience. And since we're losing so many models, so many good models, we see pictures of what maybe we think is a good man, a good husband, a good father, and we try to put that coating on, right? And so the old phrase comes to my mind, if you put lipstick on a pig, you still got a pig, right? And so kind of like the wall that's falling down, well, if I'm going to turn a property and I don't want to spend a lot of money on it, I'm just going to throw a new coat of paint on it.
Yep.
And many men that we're dealing with from the outside kind of just have that fresh coat of paint. We talk all the time like, okay, they've got the body, they're working out of the gym, or they've got the truck, or they've got the paycheck, or they got the woman, right? And so they've got all of these facades, right? These external coatings, but they don't really even know the fight, the underpinning of the fight is not even supported, right? They don't have the foundation. And so what we would, so the question might be like, well, why do we just want to slap a fresh coat of paint on it versus dig down heavy and put the piers in for the foundation? And guys don't even know sometimes that they have to do that. They don't understand the construction concepts that you have to have a foundation, right? Because they haven't been taught. The second thing is it's work.
It is. It's hard work.
Right? Most of us avoid hard work because it's just not fun.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's a laziness, and then we're in a comfort culture, and so if I got to go dig a foundation for the next 2 weeks with my shovel, forget that. Let's just go ahead and pour the wall and go, and maybe it'll stand for a while. And so the net result is kind of what we're seeing, and we all the time will reference statistics from National Fatherhood Association or organization, and just the number of societal ills, the kids who are out of wedlock, the poverty rate, the drug rate, the dropout rate, the imprisonment rate. All of these are directly connected to the foundation that we're talking about. So, with that being said, I don't want to spend a whole, like, those are obvious, okay? The broken leg is obvious, okay? Right? Quit talking about the broken leg. How do we heal the leg? Right? So the challenge might be, Justin, so what are you guys doing in the fight? How do you challenge guys in terms of the healing and giving them the vision? Like, what's your process? How are you connecting? How are you getting guys healed or helping in the healing?
Yeah, so there's several different things that we do. So we have monthly rhythms that where we get together, and we intentionally will meet together, and we do a fight breakfast every month, the second Saturday of every month, which is open invitation. Then we do a fight night, the third Friday of every month, where we throw axes in the barn and just have a good time. But one of the things,
throw axes at a board, not each other.
Yeah, well, sometimes. But one of the things in that is the regular rhythms in our lives. If we're going to be disciplined, we're going to have to develop some regular disciplines in our lives. So, so we encourage guys to get involved. We have every Wednesday morning Bible studies at 7 a.m. To wake up. And there's something that's amazing about getting together with other men or even other people and just cracking the Bible and opening up the Word and just listening. So often we just go to church on Sunday mornings and we kind of check that box. We're good to go. But we don't invite God to lead us in our daily walk. So there's a daily discipline. That we've all heard the prayer, "Give us this day our daily bread," right? Well, oftentimes God doesn't give us our weekly bread because we would just hoard it up. Right. So he gives this is a daily discipline that we have that we got to be digging into some. Yeah,
you can't eat one meal a week and expect that you're going to survive well.
Right. Yeah. So I think the other thing too is being around other men, and I mean just being a part of Strong Dads. Some of these even on Saturday mornings when we would work out and have some just dig in a little bit together. To be around people that are going to challenge us. Because it is. Nobody likes to be challenged, right? If you get a relationship with your wife and she challenges on something that the way that you talk to her, just like, wait, hang on a second, woman, so it doesn't feel good. but it's worth fighting for. These are things that are worth going after.
Yeah.
And being around other men to be accountable, nobody's policing, saying, hey, what are you doing? Did you drink something today that you should have been? But partnering with each other and having some accountability with other men, specifically just with their struggles that men have that, that women don't particularly struggle with. Obviously, one of those is with our eyes. So having men that are going to set an example, and always having someone. What I encourage guys is like you always want to have someone ahead of you that you're looking toward, that you're being mentored by, but you also need to have someone behind you that you're bringing with you. So I think that's a really good principle in that apprenticeship. Another thing, we're going to go to YouTube and we're going to do a YouTube video on how to do something. It'd be much better to just apprentice under someone who's a little bit further down the line. So there's a lot of principles in that of having strong men around you and being accountable, having some accountability with that. We're not just getting together and, doing a Bible study, or not just getting together to have a inspirational talk, but there's actually a relationship with that.
Don't life with each other.
And I think that life on life, that's the thing that's going to change some of these. I mean, there are a lot of young men who have no father figures in their life. So they're looking at celebrities, men. They're looking at what am I supposed to be? What is the measure of a man? And if we as men in our community, our Southeastern Indiana community, would be activated and rise up to our role as men, as God-fearing men that would lead our families well, that would lead our businesses well with integrity and character, and lead our communities well, we can make an impact in this small community that's going to resonate out from here.
Justin, you had spoken something in my mind, just started, the wheels kind of turning in my brain. When you talk about this idea of rhythms, you have different rhythms that you're doing, whether it be, the axe throwing, or whether it be, doing the breakfast. Man, I think back to my training in paramedic school. They teach you what a normal sinus rhythm looks like. So the rhythm, your heart monitor. So when you put the stickers all over, they teach you what normal sinus looks like. They have to teach you what that looks like in order to tell you when something's wrong. And I think in a lot of ways that just talking about the absence of a dad, a lot of times the generation of dads that we're dealing with today, they don't know what normal looks like. So it's really hard to then say, okay, this is where I'm at now. This is not normal. So to have these rhythm checks, to have these times, to go back and having accountability, having someone who is come alongside you, another man, that is normal. That is normal. But for a lot of men, that's abnormal. But they have no idea that it's not normal, because they've never been taught what does normal look like. So I love that when you're talking about this idea of having rhythms, man, to me that speaks to what I do in my profession, because I know what normal looks like. So when I don't see normal on the monitor, I know that this person's in trouble. But again, if guys don't know what that normal, they have no idea that is not normal for them.
Well, we've lived sick for so long. We become comfortable with that. It's like when the chiropractor adjusts you for the first time, always tries to go back to the bad adjustment until you discipline your muscles to be able to hold that in place. So that's where that discipline comes in place. And it has to be, and it is hard work. But I'll tell you one thing: it's easier with people around you.
It's hard work initially. Right? Like it's hard work initially, but I've always said I'm too lazy to be a criminal, because once you're a criminal, it takes so much work to get out of being a criminal. And so the idea here is, it seems like hard work, but it's only hard work because when you're so far lost, the journey back to the right trail, it seems forever. Okay. But Kyle, I love the point that you bring up, because like I was going to ask you, like, okay, so why do you get together and center this around God's word? Why don't you just like talk about hot cars or talk about hunting? And not that stuff can't be talked about, but the idea here is, if we don't have a regular discipline with seeing what healthy is, and God's word is the epitome of healthy. Like that's the standard. That's what we talk about with rock solid. And so if we don't have a daily look at, okay, this is healthy, this is a healthy way. And where do I get that? Only through God's word. Otherwise, I am looking at the latest celebrity, the latest YouTube star, whoever that is, and I'm going, okay, like, man, I want to be like that guy. Well, if that guy's lost, so the idea that we can't just be a group of guys that get together and hang out. We have to be a group of guys that hang out with the right vision.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, the whole group can go astray.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Powerful stuff. So let me ask you, I never had a good father. I have been in trouble in my life. There's no way in the world I'm going to go down to the fight and hang out with these guys because, like, you don't even know how much of a mess I am. Yeah. What do you have to say to that dude?
I'd say they have no idea how much of a mess we are. And you're going to fit in real well.
Yeah.
We come from all different backgrounds and all different addictions and all different, fixes in our lives, and we're all a work in progress. And that's one of the things is it's not a competition to see, if I can beat you at this or this. I mean, there's gonna be competition. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You'll see that, and that's just fun camaraderie that happens through that. But we're on a journey together. And the cool thing about it is that as you get involved in some of these groups, that you're going to find people that are willing to come alongside of you. And that's part of what we try to fight for. We're willing to fight for our brothers, through this process. And right now there are some guys getting their teeth kicked in the fight, in the fight group. And we fight for each other. I mean, but there's obviously if you're not willing to be vulnerable and you want to keep that fresh coat of paint really clean, and you don't want to do the hard work, you're going to be limited to how far you can go. But we're talking about a legacy here with our children. We can fight for our jobs and we can make a lot of money, but at the end of the day, what good has it done if we've left our families at home and our kids are a mess?
Yeah.
And our kids are struggling at school because they don't have a father that's present in their lives, or our wife is lonely because she doesn't have a man in her life that is willing to listen because it's my way or the highway. So there's, I think, in inspiring and giving guys hope that there's a better way, but there is also, this is weighty.
Yeah.
That there's a lot on the line. And the most important part of that is your family. Your wife, your children, your significant other, even your extended family.
Yeah.
That's what's worth fighting and going after. And are we willing to be vulnerable enough and surrender our will to ultimately what God wants, but also to listen to other people around us and take heed on that advice.
Yeah, and that's we are always talking about the next generation, right? Like if I'm only going to worry about today and just me and how I'm functioning, then hey, is all I need is a little bit of food, a little bit of comfort, and I'm good. But that does nothing to impact positively the next generation.
Right.
Yep.
So I want to ask you. So when let's identify, because we're talking about the fight, right? And when you're in a fight, like if you're in the jungle in Vietnam and you are walking through that jungle and the enemy's out there, it doesn't do you any good until you identify the enemy. If you can't see him in the trees, is all you do is become freaked out, right? You become anxious. You be like, I know things are around me, but what do I do, right? So maybe let's talk for a second about, okay, so we're calling this a fight. What is the enemy? Who is the enemy? So that we can help guys, because I think a lot of guys don't even know that they're being beat up because they've got a little bit of polish on them. For right now, they're winning, in their mind, like, man, I'm making the check, I'm making this, I'm doing that. What are some enemies, and what are some things that we can say, hey, dude, like if this is what you're spending time on, the enemy's working with you. What are some things that you see with guys that from the outside they might look like they got
Well,
it?
I mean, I think our number one enemy, and I'd go to fight against anybody over this, is that pride. Is that we think we can handle this. We think we got it under control. We're gonna take the bull by the horns, and until we're willing to admit and confess, that maybe we need other people around us, maybe we need some help, maybe there's some things in our lives that need to change, then we're stuck, and it's gonna be really hard to go anywhere beyond that. And I think that the challenge with that is that sometimes we can think, man, things are really down and out. I'm really humble. No, I think that we need to make sure that it's very clear. You're not humble. You're just lowly, you know. And there's a very big difference between humility and lowliness.
Yeah.
And so I think as we are willing to surrender our pride and willing to be, and that's kind of that vulnerability. I mean, even if it's with my wife and willing to say, "Hey, I'm struggling," it's going to be hard for people to come around, you know, if you're stuck in your pride. And that I believe is really a lot of the other things that we will tend toward as men stem from that pride of not being willing to lay some things down in our lives.
I want to go there for a second because I cannot agree with you more. Okay, I mean, and I've even thought of myself as humble, and I come to realize I'm more self-deprecating. Like, oh man, I made a mistake. Oh, but I'm really not changing my ways, right?
Right.
And so it's more like, you know, almost a victim, feel sorry for me versus like, dude, like, get your head out of your rear end.
Yep.
Call it what it is. But
can we help him with that? Let's hear that one.
you guys aren't strong enough to pull this one out. So the idea here of pride, like as I'm listening to you talk, I've got men in my head, men that I know, I've got a vision of, and I'm seeing certain men go, I'm not buying what they're selling. Yeah. This is BS. What's the next podcast? What you know, and like, how do I know I struggle with pride? I think we should tackle that for just a second because we can all say, yeah, pride's a problem, but how do we know that we're struggling? And I see it in my work all the time. But one way that I'll say is if you at all are canceling anything that we're talking about today, that is an indication that you got a pride problem. Right there. The idea that you say, no, I don't have that issue. No, we get along fine in my family. No, I treat my wife good. No, I need to listen to something else. This right there would be my first indication. A second thing that I see all the time, if your wife or another guy calls you out, you defend yourself right away. Well, yeah, but I do. The yeah buts. As soon as you throw your yeah but in, you say, yeah, I agree with you, but not really. You're going to rationalize what you're doing. Why would I rationalize what I'm doing? Because I'm God and you're not. Oh, crud, I used to do that all the time. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, pride is really hard to identify because you might look at your lifestyle and go, yeah, no, like, I'm not arrogant. I'm not like to show off. That's extreme levels, but those are really the rarity. Yeah. The common is defending the practice that you do that does not honor God. Yeah. And for me to sit down in like a coaching session with a husband and wife, and for a wife to call out her husband, and for him to just hear it. Yep. That's a step in the right direction. Almost never happens. Almost never happens. Yep. I'll say, tell me what he's doing that's hurting you. And she'll say it, and he'll go, well, yeah, but I think you misunderstand me. He will right away come to his defense. Pride. He's trying to protect himself. Even if she's wrong, you still have to hear it because you have to honor where she's at. Yeah. And so how often are we in defensive mode, not for the right thing, but for ourselves? And you know, I just keep doing what I'm doing. I just keep doing what I'm doing. And so pride is such a powerful word, but man, Justin, like we're so full of it, we don't even know how full of it we are.
Oh, man. All the time.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, man, the most nutritious piece of food you eat is humble pie, and it tastes miserable.
I think another litmus for that pride is that, you know, I really feel sorry for that guy. He's going through that, and I don't struggle with that. You know, he's having a hard time with his relationship with his wife, but I'm a great husband. Or, you know, hey, his business isn't quite as good as mine, you know, because, you know, they really can't keep up with this. So I think the litmus of I feel sorry for that person because they're not quite where I am. That's a really good litmus to say, you know, that's just pride. That's all that is. Yeah. And until we can,
which is the comparison model,
right? It is.
So whenever you're well, at least I'm not as bad as him. So it's not to the standard; it's to
it happens in the church as well. Hey,
yeah.
I go to this church. That church, I kind of feel sorry for them because they're not quite where we're at.
We used to be like that way, but now we're up here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is that how that goes?
Well, Justin, speaking on that idea of pride, and obviously, I think all three of us would openly admit that pride is obviously an issue. I know for sure for me.
I mean, it's not for me, but it is for you.
Yeah. In the fight movement that you're doing. How are some of the ways you guys are tackling this idea of pride? Because obviously, if I would generalize a statement that a lot of men deal with pride issues, right? So how do you guys in the fight movement? How do you guys tackle that? How do you fight after people, guys, men that have the pride at the forefront, and I'm okay, and I don't have anything wrong with what I got going on?
I mean, it's confessing that we don't have control of it all. I mean, and here's the beauty of this whole thing is, and this is an incredible thing, and as I think it was just. As God revealed this to me, it allowed me to be free. And it's that I don't have to carry the weight.
Yeah.
I don't have to carry everything. That He paid the price on the cross to carry these things. So, I mean, when I'm stressed out because I have 14 jobs lined up and ready to go, or I'm stressed out because my kids are a mess, or I'm having a relation problem with my wife, I don't have to carry. It's not that I'm abdicating away from those things, or I'm not taking responsibility. Right. The first step is taking responsibility and that self-awareness. When I talk about Nehemiah, when in Nehemiah 4:14 it says, and after I looked things over, when he looked at the wall, he took a self-evaluation. He took an evaluation of the wall, the crumbled wall around him. Yeah. But then what did he do? He said, after I looked things over, I stood up and I said to the nobles, don't be afraid of them. Behold, our God is great and mighty. We have to make a change if we're gonna make a change.
Yeah,
something has to change. So we have to first of all be self-aware enough that we recognize this is not a healthy pattern for me, and we recognize that through kind of iron sharpening iron with other men. We recognize that through getting in the Word and reading and allowing the Holy Spirit to convict us through the Word of God. But then we have to do something about that.
Yeah,
and that's where that accountability. With other, we can talk about good things to do, but if we have no accountability for it, it's easy to kind of slide off.
Slide right back.
But if I know that Merrill's going to be at, I have a good example. Dr. Mike, one of my running partners, that guy's going to be at my doorstep at 7 a.m. ready to run on Sunday mornings, every Sunday morning.
I'd be locking that door.
Right. Well, for the past 10 years. And so the days when I think about, I'm just going to roll over and get to sleep because I'm tired.
Yeah.
No, he's going to be waiting for me at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just, it's really as easy as that.
Yeah.
So we have a predictable pattern in our life that kind of brings that accountability. We have to develop those rhythms in our lives with other men and other people in our lives to have that accountability, that partnership, and that helps us move forward through some of those things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've watched myself over the years as physically avoid accountability. Like, I don't want to sign up for that race anymore because it hurts to do the training, or I'd rather sleep in. And you're so right. Like, no. If you want to perform in that, or if you want to partake, then you're going to have some accountability measures and some disciplines built in. Yep. I want to address a little bit of what you said there, and I know this is why a lot of guys start attending the fight. All right, and this is why they come to Strong Dads. This is why they come to Rock Solid Families. Is that they finally been kicked in the gut one last time that they don't think they're going to survive it. When you talk about how do we handle pride, how do we start to break that down and turn that around, as much as it sucks, like many of us, myself included, have to get kicked in the teeth. So if you're in a place in your life right now where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I want to live. I don't know about my marriage. I don't know about my job. I don't know, whatever. That's the best place you can be. That's the best place you can be, because now you're raw for coaching, right? Now you're raw for what I'm doing is not working. And so if you find yourself in that place, all right, take a breath and now surrender to the help. Because it is out there. A lot of people say, oh, there's no place to get help. No, help's all over. You just haven't looked for it. It's all over, whether it's the fight, Strong Dads, counseling, a church, just a guy to go talk to. It's all over, but the excuses for avoidance are also all over. Yeah. And so, hey, right now, if you're getting kicked in the teeth, all right, embrace it, man. Embrace the pain and say, okay, this sucks. What do I need to do to get out? So.
Hey, Justin, how are guys getting involved in the fight, or how are you guys reaching the guys? Like, how does that kind of work as far as our guys coming to you, or you guys going to the guys?
We had a really great opportunity in March. We had our first fight camp.
Okay.
Similar to what like the man camps, very similar. A lot of guys are involved with Crossroads. So, we're very familiar with that, and they did an amazing job bringing that together. But I think just some of these activities, like the fight nights and the fight camp, as guys come, they realize, hey, I can be real. I'm not going to be judged here, but I'm going to be challenged.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be vulnerable. As they see that and there's opportunities, we're not always digging into the word, and we're not always, it's not always kumbaya. It's never kumbaya.
Yeah.
But it's rarely like that. It's much more, hey, we're talking about common interests. It might be fishing, it might be cars, whatever it is, but they're being around a different culture.
Yeah.
We're not just out there getting boozed up and and drinking our and talking bad about our wives and families and complaining. There's a different culture that we're trying to create with that. So there may be nothing brought up at all, but you might just be around some healthy men that actually show that that care for you and that you can be vulnerable with. So I think having some of those rhythms
that's called
around,
discipleship, is what that's called.
Yeah.
But I love the word that you use there. It's culture.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we tend to saturate ourselves in the culture that accepts us for what we are, and sometimes what we are is not honoring God. It's not using our gifts. It's not putting us in the right position. It just allows us to stay stagnant, right? So I just want to go off of what you said there, Kyle, the idea. So how can guys, I know you said some of the things that you do, but how can guys give us your location? How can they get in touch with you? How can they get involved? Give them a little info.
Yeah, so we there is a fight Facebook page that one of our guys manages. There we post there. You can look under the fight as a nonprofit, on general Facebook. We meet down the second Saturdays. We have a fight breakfast. We literally, guys, just
and there's
pitch
way
in.
too much food.
And it's amazing. I mean, we had a fight failure with breakfast one time. We had burnt eggs and some nasty sausage one time. And since then, guys are bringing smoked pork butts and everything else. So now it's amazing. We do that the second Saturday of every month at 302 Walker Avenue. It's just a big pole barn.
302 Walker Avenue.
Yep, Walker Avenue in downtown Lawrenceburg behind the firehouse.
Okay.
Anybody's welcome to stop by there, and it's 7 a.m. Saturday morning. So
it's a little bit of an alley. So like if you're driving down there, you might. It's a little bit of an alley, and then you go down there. I think you're the first building.
It's the first building.
Alley.
It's right there in that alley. So. If that's something you're welcome, and at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, usually guys are hungry for something more than just breakfast. So oftentimes the conversation goes a little bit deeper, similar to kind of how we're talking today. Fight nights are very different. We just come, we throw axes, we play cornhole, we open up the barn, and we just have a good time. Like we did a fish fry a few weeks ago. And you can come and get involved. Same location, 302 Walker Avenue, the third Friday of every month.
Okay.
You stop by there, get involved. And one of the things that we're always looking for in the fight, kind of the fight leader captains are always looking for opportunities to encourage guys and to just come alongside of people where they are.
Yeah, so you might not be a guy who's actually in a bad way, but hey, if you're a guy who's kind of been there, has some experience, hey, you're welcome, right?
Well, you will be surprised at the guys who look like they got it together great once they finally let down their guard, and you start to see the reality of our lives, and that's the beauty of the whole process is that as we lay down our pride, it oftentimes takes us to a broken state in our lives, and that is one of the best places to be. Not that you're necessarily that your marriage is broken, that your kids are broken, that you have a major addiction or anything else, but when you recognize that there's nothing good inside of me outside of God and others, that's kind of the definition of humility that I use a lot.
You recognize all the masks that you've been hiding behind. Like I see that, I've done well in this area. Take that mask off, take that one off.
There's so much healing that can happen with a broken heart and just a vulnerable place with other men. And I mean, we whether we admit it or not, we all struggle with our different fixes.
Yeah.
And we can get past those, but it's together. Yeah. It happens best together. I mean, we're not going to do this on our own.
Yeah.
And if we're holding on to the reins so tight, it's time to let go and just open your hands up and let some other people come alongside of you.
Yeah. All right, man. Great stuff. I want to thank you for being on Strong Dads,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I thank you for the work that you're doing. And I know that your heart is passionate for really everything that you do. If your heart's not in it, you're just not doing it, right? And so you run full tilt, which is exhausting for the people in your life, I'm sure. Your poor wife, she's.
Yes.
But I love it because God gifted you with that energy,
Yeah.
and now you're using it in a way like, hey, let's do something good with it versus just fulfilling yourself, right? So I want to thank you for that. Any last words you want to say, just in general?
Just keep up the fight. There's some better things worth fighting for. And we appreciate you guys at Strong Dads and everything you guys are doing. Really, it is defining a new culture in our area for men.
Yeah.
Of what a real man looks like.
Yeah, and let me say too, just there's a big deal with keeping it local. It's not that you don't want to grow it out, but every man needs to know that in his neighborhood, so to speak, that there's a resource there.
Yeah.
And so, there might be some place over in California and New York, and I can get online and kind of get fed a little bit. But unless I have kind of an immediate resource, there could be a cool gym over in LA, but that does little for me. I need to go to my own culture, my environment. So it's important to be locally connected that way. We good?
Yeah, good.
You want to sign us off with a little?
Sounds good, Justin. Thanks so much for being on the show. Really do appreciate it. Thanks so much for Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Really do appreciate them. Allows us to keep putting shows out like this. I hope you guys are out there having a good week. Continue to share the heck out of these shows. More guys need to hear stuff, about the fight movement. More guys need to hear, these conversations that we're having. If you guys have concerns or you guys are struggling in your walk with Christ, in your marriage, and as a dad figure, man, reach out to Rock Solid Families. I know Merle and Linda would love to come alongside of you, help you out, whatever you got going on. So thanks so much just for continuing to listen and continue to share the heck out of these shows. So I think we're good. Go out there and meet some strong dads.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, gentlemen.
Good deal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.